Charles came in the room with a gun. They killed a pig, not even a normal pig, a baby pig. As though she didn't just get sexually assaulted by her twin brother. Pages left. I'm now on page 430 and Bunny is dead. Bunny just got found. It took a while for him to get found, like 50 pages at least. After Bunny died, it started snowing and the whole friend group kind of went crazy, understandably. It took 3 days for Bunny to be reported missing. Search parties were formed and the boys got questioned. They weren't suspects or anything, but they got questions because they were the people closest to Bunny. When it was first broadcasted in the news that Bunny had gone missing, a witness did an interview. It was an old man who fixes cars and he claimed to have seen Bunny get out of the car of Arabian boys. But really, we'll get to this later, the man was just being racist. Not cool. Also, Cloak is acting very suspiciously because he's on so many drugs. He does heroin, he drinks a lot of alcohol. I don't know how his body's still functioning, honestly. He is on especially many drugs because he blames himself for Bunny having gone missing. Because in his head, he connects Bunny's disappearance to Bunny being in contact with the drug people that Cloak had introduced him to. So Cloak thinks that he is the reason why Bunny has gone missing and possibly hurt or killed. The police also pick up on Cloak's weird behavior and drug excess, and it seems like he is the #1 suspect. Henry, being the little cunt that he is, he takes advantage of this. Henry tells the friend group, guys, this is a really good thing actually. We can just blame it all on Cloak. You need to leave! I swear, Henry is an evil mastermind. He keeps coming up with evil plans and then he frames other people to have done something that he actually did. Also, this reminds me of a book or a play called DNA. I forgot the author, but it's DNA. Maybe I can blend it in here. We read it in English class and honestly it was really good, and it's also about framing somebody else for the murder oneself has committed. Really good. At least I remember it being really good. Maybe it's not, but teen me was like, wow, revolutionary. They killed somebody and now they're framing somebody else, and morality. And they did all of that without taking 600 pages like this one. So if you want a short version of The Secret History, read DNA. It's basically the same thing. It isn't, but whatever. Cloak isn't the only suspect though. The Middle Eastern man that the car fixer guy talked about, they are also suspects. This old man, he goes on several TV shows and tells everyone the stories about, oh, the Middle Eastern guys, they are so evil. But it's really just a racist excuse. Here, the old man is doing an interview and there's also a Palestinian man present there. And the Palestinian man says, I am an Arab and I resent the racial slurs you make against my people. To which the old man responds, you like it here? Yes. You want to go back? Because the boats run both ways. Essentially telling him to go back to his country. To which the Palestinian man responds, where does your family come from? Are you Native American or what? Girl, he ate with that so good. The guy basically pulled a Uno reverse card, which, good job. After this, the old white guy continues to say a lot of really racist things on TV, and it's very unserious. During the investigation of Bunny's case, the FBI eventually showed up. Oh my God. And they question everyone, but the FBI also recognizes, okay, this old man's story, it's fake. He's crazy. Once they realize that, they are gone quite quickly, which means the friend group is basically safe. They got away with murder. Oh, also, the teacher, Julian or whatever his name is, he used to teach a princess. Not like a princess like me, but like actually monarch princess. I forgot what nation she was from, but also like Middle Eastern area somewhere. That is an insane side hustle, side quest, whatever. Julian is just, he is that man. Fun fact, Julian hasn't left the USA in ages because he's scared that he would get murdered, assassinated if he does, because other people who were in contact with the princess, they got murdered. So now he thinks, okay, maybe I'm on the murder list too. Unrelated to that, going back to the Arabian men who were blamed, who probably don't even exist. I found that quite interesting because Donna Tartt, she illustrates how when it comes to crime, it's always the minority groups who are blamed. In this case, the rich kids, the rich friend group, they don't even get suspected. Instead, the drug addict and the Arabian men, they are the ones to get blamed. Even though the real murderers are right in front of their eyes, they are not even, they don't even seem suspicious to them because, oh, they dress nice, they study Greek, whatever, sure, they're fine. Like, no girl, they perform weird sex rituals and kill people. Not cool. Guys, also. Yeah, bitch, you're not gonna like to hear this. They killed a pig. Not even a normal pig, a baby pig. You know why? Wait, okay, so the friend group, when they first murdered somebody, not Bunny, but the other man. Girl, that's insane. Oh, the story. Henry, our evil mastermind, he had the idea that we got blood on our hands, so we gotta rinse off the blood with other blood. It makes no sense. God, let me look for the text passage. Here, in a conversation with Camilla, she confesses to Richard what they had done. He made us kill a piglet. We cut its throat, then we took turns holding it over each other so it bled on our heads and hands. It was awful. I nearly got sick. According to Henry, murder is pollution. The murderer defiles everyone he comes into contact with. And the only way to purify blood is through blood. We let the pig bleed on us. Then we went inside and washed it off. After that, we were okay. What the hell? I don't think that's how it works. Who came up with that rule? Girl, why is he's literally just yapping shit and thinks he's the shit? Girl, no. It's like fighting fire with fire. You wash off blood by blood. What? Also, like the pig. What did the pig do to you? And I believe that they killed the pig a few days after the initial murder. So their decision to kill a pig wasn't even drug-induced. They just decided that upon themselves. Also, you might think that they killed another pig after killing Bunny to rinse off their hands, but they didn't. Camilla told Richard that Henry had said that he doesn't consider killing yet another pig is a good idea because in this murder, Richard was involved and Richard probably isn't cool with that, which I think most people wouldn't be cool with that, but they just got a bunch of psychopaths here. Also, that's a pretty weak excuse. Was the pig ever necessary in the first place if you're just dropping it that casually now? Also, throughout this book, Camilla and Richard have a lot of romantic moments. I think they kissed a few times, but they never speak directly about it. Is communication really that hard, guys? Can you not, like, talk it out? Also, Charles, the twin brother of Camilla, he's not really cool with that. I think he's just generally possessive over his sister, like most brothers are. So one time he runs in on them and they're alone in their house in the middle of the night and Charles is like, what are you doing here, Richard? Also, the twins give weirdly incest vibes, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. Returning back to the missing persons investigation, Bunny's family has also come to look for their son, and they are described as weirdly cheery considering the situation. It's not like they don't care about their son. After all, they offer $50,000 to whoever finds him. But I guess they haven't realized the seriousness of the situation yet. His family also participates in the search parties, which actually grow a lot. Bunny's case gets more attention as the story told by the racist white old man gets more popular. And for at least a week, there are hundreds of people looking for him everywhere. And yet there seems to be no success in finding him. Until a random girl who was walking her dog finds him. Actually, it was the dog finding him. I think he sniffed his body or something. And then when the girl looked for her dog, she obviously also found Bunny. Upon Bunny's discovery, the group asks policemen or the FBI if they think that Bunny had gotten murdered or if it was suicide or whatever. Honestly, they just want to know like where they stand, if they are suspected or anything. However, the policemen or FBI agents, they tell them that it was most likely either an accident or maybe suicide, but most likely just accident, because Bunny had been intoxicated as he was walking there near the cliff. And also it was raining, so it's likely that it was an accident, which means Henry's plan of framing it as an accidental death, it seems to work. The following weeks, the group doesn't really talk to each other a lot. They want their distance, which is completely understandable. I'm not sympathizing with them, but it's understandable that they want some time for themselves or just not see their killer buddies. Richard spends a lot of time with Judy and her friends. They noticed that he was going through a hard time, so they're just there to distract him and give him time and space. You want to say hi? That is where we're left with right now. And you know what? Donna Tartt, she's really talented. Not every author is able to make a murder story sound really boring. I think this could have been interesting if it wasn't 600 pages. In terms of my own life, not too much has happened. I mean, I'm just chilling, girl. I love being at home. All I do every day is go to the gym, play Fortnite, drink Coke Zero, sleep, and also read. Oh, also, I've been doing a lot of creative writing, which I used to do that a lot. It's one of my passions, but I didn't feel the motivation to do that for the last at least 2 years. In the past, I would assume that if I didn't constantly want to pursue my passions, then I had just lost my passion, lost my interest. But that's not the case at all. Because passions, they are not linear. Your motivation to do it is not constantly the same. There are phases in your life where you're going to be more interested in something and less interested in something. And that's completely fine. And when you're less interested, you don't have to force yourself to do that. I used to pressure myself to pursue those hobbies anyways, which was not good because it demotivated me even more to pursue those hobbies. Like, I had writer's block, and I forced myself to write anyways, but I wasn't enjoying it and I wasn't happy with the result. And I assumed that I had just lost it, that my interest for writing would never return. It sounds so dramatic, but it's how I felt in the moment. Same thing happened with art and with crochet and video editing. And it took me a while to realize that that's entirely normal. And instead of basing my whole identity on doing all of my hobbies at the same time, I would do them whenever I felt like it. If you haven't done those things for a while, you are still a writer, painter, video producer, whatever. So that's today's wisdom. You're so welcome, guys. I'm going to try to finish this book within this video, so this will be the last part of my The Secret History reading vlogs. I will see you very soon. Bye bye. Girl. I was trying to have a good little pre-sleep read, but I forgot that this book is absolutely insane. The twins fuck each other! And what's more, Francis fucked Charles! I was just trying to get some pages in so I would have something to report back to you. But girl, the pages, they are so spicy right now. I need to tell you them immediately. To go back to where we left off, Bunny's funeral is going to be in a few days here, and everybody is very... Oh my god! Sorry, my cat just entered in the most creepiest way ever. Say hi! Hello! A few days before the funeral, the friend group as well as other people who were friends with Bunny, they get invited to stay at Bunny's house. They They get invited by Bunny's mother to stay there. And then she prepares basically a big sleepover for all of his loved ones so that on the next day they can go to the funeral together. Personally, I don't think that sounds very fun, especially because they have to sleep in the basement. All the guests sleep in one big room in the basement on one of those camper beds. It's not comfortable, and then also like everybody's grieving. Oh, also important to mention, Henry, our evil mastermind, he has been staying with Bunny's family ever since Bunny got discovered. Henry is at the family's house to just help them out, do little tasks for them, anything to make the grieving process easier. Because Bunny and him had been very close friends, and also they had been roommates at one point, like in their freshman year for some time. And apparently Bunny was very obsessed with Henry and always told his family about him. So yeah, they were very close, even though they are such polar opposites, which is interesting. However, as we know, Henry tends to suffer from these intense headaches. As a young boy, he had an accident and was also a very sickly child. And his poor health still follows him to this day. And his sicknesses and headaches get especially triggered from stress. Last time he had it was in Rome when Bunny was annoying the living shit out of him. And sorry. Now Henry is experiencing immense stress again from staying with Bunny's family. This guy is being so loud, I apologize. I will let him out. At the sleepover, we can tell Henry is going freaking crazy. Actually, he isn't. He's always very composed. It's almost inhumane how intact, how logical, how rational he is always thinking. So even now that he's suffering in his health, he's still putting on a show because he knows it's the most logical or the most appropriate way to act in such a situation. So even though he's going through immense pain, he's still putting on a nice facade and greeting everyone and helping out the family of Bunny. But there was one time he slipped, actually. He was a little bit rude just because the headache was going so crazy. And then like Bunny's family tasked him with one thing. He just stood there, didn't even look at them, and monotonely said, "Why?" And then the family said the task again, and he again replied, "Why?" That just seems like regular little bit of attitude, which everyone in his situation would show. Like, if you have a headache, you're gonna be a little bit, like, snarky. But for Henry, that's such a big break in his character, because he's always Mr. Perfect. Oh my god, also, they do drugs. Girl, I cannot deal with this anymore. They are always doing drugs. Bitch, even the mother is doing drugs. Remember Cloak, the drug guy who got blamed for Bunny's disappearance/death? He dealt drugs to Bunny's mother. How we found out about this drug relationship is at the sleepover, Richard and also the other friends, they notice that Henry is obviously in pain, and Richard starts looking for painkillers. He runs into Cloak and he's like, "Bro, like, do you have anything with you? Like, I really need drugs. Not for me, but for my friend." Cloak tells him, "Girl, let's go to the mother's room because she has drugs." And obviously Richard wants to know how Cloak knows that Bunny's mother has drugs in her room. It's because he deals them to her. They take the drugs from the mother's cabinet and Henry gets drugs. But Henry is seriously on the brink of collapsing. I mean, he's been going through this for over a week now, and even before that he was going through so much stress with the whole situation with Bunny, like the whole blackmailing situation, and now he has the whole like guilty conscience situation, and also like trying to figure out how to get away with murder, how to not get caught, and also like how to keep a low profile and communicate with the family of the guy you murdered every day. I'm not sympathizing with this little cunt bitch, but still, like, objectively, that's a crazy situation. Henry's not the only one going through shit though. Charles is also hella traumatized, okay? And he's been turned into an alcoholic. So now we don't only have drug people, we also have alcoholics. Yippee! Charles's newfound alcoholism leads to another fun situation at the sleepover. Charles stole a car. Specifically, Charles stole Francis's car. It's a Cabrio, like one of those where you can lift the roof up. It was raining on that night of the sleepover, which basically means that it was raining into the car the whole ride. And he was gone for like 2 hours, I think. I don't know, not important. But Francis is running around the sleepover like, where's Charles? Where's my car? Give me my fucking car. It's gonna be so wet. And eventually Charles shows up again and he's soaking wet, and Francis is so pissed at him, which, like, understandably, he just ruined his car. But then drunken Charles says something funny. Charles tells Francis, why are you even mad? Literally, you've been driving around with your roof up, down, all the time while it was raining, so, like, why are you making a big fuss about this? To which Francis replies, girl, when have I ever done that? To which Charles replies, when you made a move on me, when you flirted with me and kissed me and married me and then held my hands and then we made eye contact before marriage and then... So basically he's exposing him, like telling the world or like the people who are present that Francis hit on his best friend. Ding dong. So Francis, like, he's a player, okay? Francis is a playboy. Not only did he try to hit up Richard several times, by the way, but he also, like, tried it with Charles. So, like, he's going everywhere. He's just, like, shooting his shot everywhere. But that was fun. Also, Bunny would not be happy about this because he's homophobic. So imagine, like, this is his sleepover, okay? He's already dead, but, like, technically it's his sleepover. But his friends are making drama about them being gay. Moving on from that situation, Bunny's father is actually, like, heartbroken. Like, it's really sad, like, genuinely. He keeps having hysterical moments where he's just sobbing, but his emotions are all over the place. 1 second he will be greeting a guest, super happy, making jokes, but then suddenly he will break down in tears and he, like, collapses while crying because he's crying so much. During those scenes, the friend group, the murder friend group, is always present and they see him, and although we don't know what's going on in the heads of the others, we know what's going on in Richard's head. And he realizes the gravity of the situation. Honestly, kind of late. Like, maybe you should have realized the gravity of the situation when Henry came into your room and suggested to murder your friend. Like, maybe that, to me, that would sound pretty serious. But I guess to him, it only hit him that fucking assassinating, murdering, killing a friend is pretty deep and not something very casual. And it actually has pretty intense after effects. Moral of the story, don't kill people because, like, it's sad. So anyways, everybody then goes to sleep, or at least they try to sleep, although nobody really sleeps well. After that sleepless night, everybody is getting ready together. And by getting ready, I mean smoking blunts together. These hoes cannot stop taking drugs. Personally, I would be offended if my friends were just getting high for my funeral. Like, I don't want you to sit there red-eyed because you're high out of your mind. I want you to sit there with red eyes because you were crying your eyes out for me, okay? I want you to be there fully present, fully feeling the pain. The church part of the funeral, so the mass or ceremony or whatever it's called, it felt like nobody was really paying too much attention to the whole scene, or like not really present, not really grieving properly. There's no proper way to grieve, but they were not really mentally part of it. Probably because everyone was high out of their minds, because everybody has a drug problem in this book. This is how they get away with murder, because everybody has a drug problem. Sorry, my camera just died. My funeral in like 100 years, it better be so fucking emotional. I want everybody to have to go to the hospital afterwards because everybody is just so emotional and like had heart attacks from how pained they were. Talking about heart attacks, Francis called Richard a few days later telling him, bro, I'm having a heart attack right now, /SRS, come over right now and drive me to the hospital, please. And he was just being hysterical. He was not making a lot of sense. He was like, I need to go to the hospital, but don't call an ambulance, but like, come to me. But also like, no, like, who is there with you? And also like, I'm having a heart attack. And in the end, it turned out he was having a panic attack. But that just goes to show how everybody is going crazy from this. Charles obviously has become an alcoholic. Francis is now suffering from panic. Henry is plagued by intense migraines from the stress of the situation. Camilla, girl, we never know what's going on with her. But Richard, he's just, you know, weird as always. But now onto Charles. This is what I came here for, okay? This is what I interrupted my beauty sleep with. Charles, oh my god, right. He stole another car. This time he stole Henry's car. And then he got pulled over by cops for drunk driving. So not only did he steal a car, but he was also driving it drunk. Bro, the reason that he stole the car was because he and Henry, they got into an argument or something, and then one thing led to another, and he took the car with him, and then he got arrested and he had to spend a night in jail. Henry didn't want to go to the police again because they had spent a lot of time with the police recently, and he didn't want them to be suspicious of the two of them, like Henry and Charles, because they already saw them so often, and now like one of them committed a crime by drunk driving, so like, oh, suspicious behavior, blah 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 blah. So what Henry decided to do was he asked Richard to go to the police instead and bail Charles out. Richard, as always, did as he was told, and he drove Charles home. Charles was still drunk from the night prior, so he was not thinking straight. But at the house, they obviously also encountered his sister, and he kissed her. It was so random. I seriously did not see it coming. Earlier, I said, oh yeah, the twins, they're kind of suspicious, low-key. But I don't want to say they're incest yet, blah, 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 blah. Girl, like, this was sudden proof. Like, we did not get eased into it. We were just, bam, incest. Here's the scene. Charles came up behind her and laid his hands on her shoulders, bending low. He put his lips close to the nape of her neck. How about a kiss for your jailbird brother? He said. What the hell? She turned halfway, as if to touch her lips to his cheek, but he slid a palm down her back and tipped her face up to his and kissed her full on the mouth. Not a brotherly kiss. There was no mistaking it for that. But a long, slow, greedy kiss. Messy and voluptuous. Camilla didn't flinch, didn't move. And then afterwards it's described how she goes back to normal as though nothing just happened. As though she didn't just get sexually assaulted by her twin brother. Also, like, this is really smart by Donna Tartt. She mentioned how Camilla, she's like going back to normal, acting like nothing happened. Like, she's putting sugar in her coffee. So, you know, normal action. But actually, Richard notes that although this seems to be a normal action, for Camilla, this little microscopic action is quite out of character because she never puts sugar in her coffee. But right now, after she got kissed by her brother, or I should say assaulted by her brother, she puts sugar in her coffee, which shows like she's trying to act normal, like a normal person. But like, obviously, she's acting out of character. Like, she's shocked too, I suppose. Later on, Richard is still shocked by what he had seen. So he talks to Francis about what he had seen and asks him, do you think maybe the twins might have like kissed or something? Like, do you think they would ever like sleep with each other? Francis says, and I quote, if you want my opinion, yes. I think sometimes they do sleep with each other. I don't think it's anything that happens too frequently, but you never know. Bunny always claimed that he walked in on them once. Apparently, he had the key and then he barged in on them without knocking and then he saw them. Surely, you must have had some idea about the twins. Baby boy, I know this town is crazy and fucked up because everyone is doing drugs, but it's like incest is not really that common. A little bit later in the conversation, Francis and Richard, they talk about how the twins are also very jealous. They are possessive over each other, especially Charles is possessive over Camilla. And yet they like sleep with other people or have affairs with other people. And during this talk, Richard asks, who has Charles been to bed with? To which replies Francis, me. That shouldn't be a surprise to you. If you drink as much as he does, I dare say I would have been to bed with you too. It hasn't happened often, 3 or 4 times. The first time when I was a sophomore and he was a freshman. We were up late, drinking in my room, and then one thing led to another. Remember the night Bunny died, when I was in your room, and Charles interrupted us at that rather unfortunate moment? Richard comments, you left my room with him that night. Then Francis confirms, yes. Basically, they fucked on the night that Bunny died. After Francis killed a homophobe, he fucked the homophobe's 2 best friends. Frances also mentions how Charles never seems to remember the nights they spent together, or like he acts like he doesn't remember, or like they never happened, and he expects Frances to just go along with it. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave it off for tonight. Bye bye! Done with this book, literally and metaphorically, and it felt like a very slow lobotomy. I hate it, and it really it was such a waste of time. Like, Donna Tartt, no offense to you, I'm sure you had a fun time writing this, and also a lot of people like it, but personally I didn't enjoy it at all. Honestly, I could not get myself to read the last 100 pages. Or I started reading the last 100 pages, but it's such a waste of time. Like, when you are physically reading it, you are only focused on reading and you cannot do anything on the side. And I have spent hours upon hours reading this book, and I'm so done with it. That's why the last 100 pages I decided to read via an audiobook, and honestly that made it more enjoyable, kind of, because I could pick up the speed and also I could do something in the meantime. I made a bunch of granny squares, like a lot, and for right now I made a little sheet so I can give you guys a rundown of everything that happened, which is actually quite a lot. Before I complained about how in this book nothing happens, but in the last 100 pages they decided, okay, we gotta make up for all the pages that we wasted, so let's just put everything in like 2 pages now and not explain a lot and just leave a lot of plot holes, because I feel like Donna Tartt herself, she didn't like this book anymore. That's what it feels like. Also, in the audiobook on YouTube, I watched it on YouTube. I don't know if that's legal. I'm sure it is legal. Anyways, the comments, they were also complaining about, yeah, this book would have needed an editor. There was one commenter who said, I feel like Donna Tartt only used this many pages so she could use those pages to show off her academic terms that she knows and all of the languages that she knows, which that is definitely what it feels like. I'm not trying to academia shame, but you know, a lot of academics, they're just like, guys, my parents didn't give me enough of attention, so now I need to impress everyone with how much I can study without actually knowing anything about the word. So here, these are all the smart words that I know. Please clap so I can feel loved. I do have to say I did learn a couple of useful words that I have now integrated into my vocabulary. So thank you for that. Okay, let's start on this. We know that Charles has become an alcoholic. Well, it gets worse. He's still an alcoholic, but just his alcoholism got worse. He also beats Camilla, his sister, who he also he has sex with. So then Camilla decides to move out. Understandable. By the way, Richard, when he found out that Camilla had been gotten beaten by her brother, he found that very sexy, and he literally had rape fantasies. What the hell? How come this book was written by a woman and it still has rape fantasies? Actually, it is very impressive that even as a woman she was able to get into the mindset of a sick, disgusting, nasty man. Richard keeps doing that, by the way. Him expressing his intrusive thoughts of wanting to hurt women and how he finds it very attractive, and also how he wants to rape them. And also when he found out that the siblings were doing incest, he was like, yeah, actually, before I found out about that, I had been fantasizing about that, like, just to jerk off. You need to leave! Anywho, so Camilla moved out because her brother beat her, and Henry helped her in moving out, which is why Henry and Charles, they had a fight with each other. In general, Henry's and Charles' relationship is very disturbed in this last segment, so keep that in mind. During the move out process, Henry helped her with it, because actually Camilla and Henry, they had a little romantic thing going on, which I didn't see that coming, actually. But Camilla, she's been hoeing down the entire club. What the fuck? Good for her, but maybe get better taste in men. Camilla's brother Charles is of course very jealous of her new boyfriend, because they're incest, you know? So Charles has every right to possess his sister. But this jealousy and this love triangle is what ruined the, well, amongst other things, what ruined the relationship between Henry and Charles. Also, I'm not certain if I mentioned this in my last part, but Henry's and Charles' relationship is also very disturbed because throughout the police investigation with Bunny's disappearance, Charles kept having to do interviews with the police and the FBI and all of that because he was pushed by Henry to do so. And all of those investigations, they traumatized Charles, which is why he is now an alcoholic. And also, as it turns out, Henry is kind of a backstabbing bitch. Who would have thought? The murderer is not a very nice person.
Oh my god!
Remember how Chloe got framed for the entire Bunny disappearance situation? Actually, the plan had been to blame Richard. Henry, the evil mastermind, is a huge manipulator, and it is very likely that the only reason why Henry had confessed their murder to Richard in the first place was so that he could get him on his side. Because he knew that if Bunny were to tell a person about this crime, the first person Bunny would have gone to would have been Richard. So that's why Henry wanted to be on good terms with Richard, so that Richard would tell Henry when Bunny had told him. Does that make sense? Henry didn't tell Richard about the crime because he trusted him as a friend, because he had empathy, because he wanted to include him. He always has an ulterior motive in his actions. He always does something that will benefit him. He is super manipulative and backstabbing because of that, because he only cares about himself and is super apathetic? Is that how you pronounce it? I hope so. In a conversation between Henry and Richard, he actually confessed to being entirely apathetic and a psychopath, basically, or a sociopath. Girl, I'm not a psychologist, but he's one of those people who only does things for themselves and is always lying and doesn't feel bad for anything he does, because as long as it benefits him, it's a good thing. Richard, understandably, is kind of pissed off and sad once he finds out that he was supposed to be the scapegoat. Turns out they are not really his friends, they just used him. Richard considered killing himself. He didn't do it, but he very much considered it. Isn't that such a nice friend group? Honestly, it is so toxic at the end. I mean, after Bunny had died, the friendship was essentially ruined already. Actually, the friendship had been ruined way before that. Once the initial murder had happened, that was when the friendship of the entire group had ended. But still, they kept on acting as though they had a normal friendship, even though that act of murdering a person had been fatal, because trust can never be rebuilt after killing somebody, especially not after killing one of the friends. Like, nobody trusts each other. Everybody is kind of scared of one another. Friendships are meant to be built on trust, but nobody in this friend group trusts each other, because how could you trust a person who you know murdered somebody else? So essentially, their friendship already ended once they committed that first initial murder back in the woods with that stranger man. And yet they have to keep playing this role of being a big friend group, or also they kind of want to continue acting as though they're still friends, as though their life can still continue on as normal. After all, they're also still attending the same class and still want to graduate eventually. But it's not really working out because everybody is going crazy. Frances, of course, has panic disorder now. Camilla got beat up by her brother. Charles is an alcoholic. He's like the worst off right now. I mean, Richard also planned on killing himself, but he didn't do it. And Henry, he's just a psychopath as always. Essentially, all of them are victim. Moving on, what else have we got? Charles, because of his alcoholism, eventually has to go to the hospital. I think he did like a bender and then he drank too much and he got an infection and like his fever was 103. That's high, okay. Girl, I'm very hot too right now because I'm sitting in the sun right now and it's like 35 degrees in Germany. I'm not okay. While Charles is in the hospital, Camilla and Henry, they both don't visit him. Henry told Richard, "Sorry bro, I cannot go to the hospital, but can you please bring this to Charles?" This being a bottle of wine or whatever it was, or vodka or something. Henry planned to second-handedly support his alcoholism. That is so cruel. Henry's essentially trying to murder another one of his friends. Isn't that nice? This time he's not doing it as directly as with Bunny. He didn't push him off a cliff, but he supported his alcoholism. And also one time he gave him a bunch of pills, like pain meds or sleeping meds, I think it was. However, those specific meds, you're not supposed to take them when you have alcohol in your system, which Charles at this point, he constantly has alcohol in the system. So if he had taken the pain meds that he was given by Henry, he would have died. What the hell? In fact, at the end, Henry did directly say, guys, let's commit another murder. Let's murder Charles! Because every person who becomes a slight bit of a threat to us, we need to get rid of them, because we are the only people that matter in this world. However, right after Henry announced this, Charles came in the room with a gun! Charles had been suspecting that Henry would have wanted to get rid of him eventually, also in a murderous way, of course, because that's just how healthy this friendship is. So before Henry could have done anything, before Henry could have manipulated the whole group again to commit a murder together, Charles decided to take matters into his own hands and shoot Henry. Charles blew 4 shots in the room that the entire group was in. However, Henry did not get hit, but Richard did. Richard got shot in the abdomen, which that is not really a good place to get shot because there are a lot of vital organs in there, in case you didn't know. Throughout all of this chaos, Charles's gun got taken away by Henry, the murderer, the evil mastermind of the group, who wants to kill Charles. So then it's like, what's going to happen now? Is Charles going to get killed right now? Oh my god, like things are getting so speedy. What the fuck? What's gonna happen now? Actually, not what you expect. In this scene, the entire group was in a hotel room. The hotel room that Camilla had moved into. And once the innkeepers had heard 4 shots going off, of course they ran to the room and wanted to know what the fuck is going on. Henry, with his gun in hand, acts fast. He goes to Camilla, whispers something in her ear. What he said, nobody knows. He then invites the innkeeper into the room and Henry shoots himself in the head. Twice. Now you might wonder, how does one shoot himself in the head twice? Well, actually it was just an accident, like he shot himself in the head once and then from the momentum, like he accidentally shot a second time, but that's just like crazy. Like Henry didn't shoot himself once, he shot himself twice. Henry's death was quite unexpected because Henry was like the central character of the story. Like technically, the main character is supposed to be Richard, and yet Richard is a bystander to his own story. He says that himself. He notices that he himself is not really part of anything, how he doesn't make any decisions himself, but instead he just follows anything that Henry does. Henry is the one who leads the group. Henry is the one who makes all the decisions. Henry is the one who makes the story progress. Henry is the one who the story is about. But now Henry is dead. And the group doesn't have an evil mastermind anymore who they can follow. The reason Henry killed himself was so that the scene looked like a suicide. So that it didn't look like Charles wanted to assassinate his friend Henry because Henry had been manipulating him, because they had murdered Bunny, because he had known that they had murdered another. It's quite confusing, but it makes sense. Do I think that this was the smartest decision? No. Do I think it's kind of a plot hole? Kind of. Henry always does things that will benefit him and him only. If it benefits others, that's just a side effect, but his main motive is always to benefit himself. So him murdering himself, that's not really beneficial to himself, but he did it anyways. I especially think it's a plot hole because the police doesn't really investigate it. Oh my god, also, remember how Richard got shot? Nobody cares. None of the characters even realize he's bleeding out right before them. Richard is just sitting there and thinking, wow, I got some really good friends. They really do care about me. I'm so important to them. In fact, there was one moment that was low-key really rude. So the first 4 initial shots went off and during those Richard got shot, right? And then like blah blah blah, there's a little scene in between, like, I don't know, 3 minutes where they just talked and yelled at each other. And then after that, the innkeepers come in and Henry shoots himself. But within that span where the whole group is still alive, however, the first shots have already been blown and Richard has gotten shot. The group is shouting at each other like, what the fuck should we do now? And their main concern is the window that they broke, the glass that has been broken by them. And they're like, who's gonna pay for that? Meanwhile, their friend is literally bleeding out. That was a pretty good commentary on how materialistic they all are and how they all only think about money or like materialistic aspects. Like, I will give this to Donna Tartt. She is good at making like between the line commentaries of capitalism and elitism. Also, side note, sorry to go on a tangent, but I said a second ago how instead of Cloak getting blamed, it was supposed to be Richard getting blamed for the death of Bunny. And before I mentioned how it's always the minority groups that get blamed for crimes. It was either the Arab man or Cloak, the drug addict, or Richard, the poor guy, who would get blamed for this crime. Never the rich kids. Yeah, I found that was quite a good little side commentary from Donna Tartt, which, like, you had to read between the lines for that, but good job, Donna. Okay, side note over, bye-bye! Back to Richard bleeding out. While Richard's friends are discussing, yeah, who's gonna pay for the window? Richard makes a snide remark, something like, yeah guys, I cannot pay for the window because I'm literally dying right now. With that comment, he finally was able to gain their attention and they noticed that he was bleeding the fuck out, but they didn't do anything. Literally hose, the fuck? I remember Richard being like, wow, they literally, like, now they actually noticed me dying, but I'm not really getting the reaction that I wanted. Like, nobody is, like, jumping to my arms and crying and holding me like, oh my god, Richard, no, my poor baby. They simply didn't give a fuck. The fuck? They're just all such good friends. Isn't he lucky to have good friends like that? They literally didn't do shit. And then, like, 1 second later, the innkeepers came in and Henry acted fast and he decided to blow his guts out. So Richard didn't even get attention or anything. Richard didn't even get his 15 minutes off. Aw, poor guy. Because Henry was immediately like, no girl, I'm gonna one-up you. You blew your guts out, I'm gonna blow my brains out. Which he does. Twice. Okay, that's so crazy. Believe it or not, but the police believed them that it was a suicide. They had told the police that the reason that Richard had gotten shot was because Richard had been trying to intervene as Henry was trying to shoot himself. It is not talked about a lot about what exactly they told the police, except, yeah, it was a suicide, and then the police believed them very easily. I feel like Donna Tartt was really just finished with the story at this point. She was like, yeah, guys, take it or leave it. This is what you get. And you know what? Fine. As long as it's over, I'm happy. And that is technically the end of the story, but then follows the epilogue, so we find out what everyone is doing now. Within this epilogue, we find out that nobody from the group who is still alive graduates from college. There's a reason for that. I will get into that in a second. Except for Richard. Richard did actually finish his studies there. Good for you, Richard! However, Richard did not graduate in Greek studies. Instead, he graduated in English literature. And the reason for that is Julian stopped working at the school. He retired or something. The reason for that being that Julian had found out about the group murdering Bunny. This was while the entire group was still alive, except for Bunny, of course. But he had gotten a letter, and at first he was sure that it was a prank letter from somebody. And this letter was written by Bunny, which Julian at first didn't believe. And the letter said something along the lines of, "Brother, my dear teacher, they are literally trying to kill me. They already killed a person and now they're gonna kill me next. Please save me. This is me formally requesting you to save me." There were some circumstances because of which Julian only ever received the letter after Bunny had already passed, and we cannot be sure when Bunny had written and sent those letters to Julian. But it is very likely that Bunny had written those letters and sent them to Julian on the night that Bunny had confessed everything to Richard, aka the day before he was killed by the group. Which in turn also means that if Julian had gotten this letter in time, he might have been able to save Bunny. There's a whole butterfly effect here. I will not go into this because that's just a big tangent, but that's crazy. Bunny could have lived and everybody could have gone to prison. Crazy. But yeah, because of this, Julian drops the class and Greek class doesn't exist anymore, and that is why everybody drops out of college. Except for Richard. With this and with all of the tragedies that have been going on, the group drifts apart from each other. It's like there's no glue holding them together anymore. No evil mastermind manipulating everyone to stay together. And thus everybody goes their separate ways. And Richard actually starts dating Sophie, the girl that he hooked up with after Bunny had died. That's just like a fun fact. But oh yeah, they break up again after like a few years. Also Julie Boovy, who is a reoccurring side character, she becomes a little like celebrity, like she becomes a Pilates princess or something like Zumba, Pilates, some kind of workout activity, and she makes videos of that, and then she becomes famous for it because at the time those workout videos were very famous. Charles becomes sober eventually, and Charles also meets some lady. I think he met her in a rehab center. Camilla kind of had a glow down. We don't really know what she's doing, but she says that she hasn't read a book in years and that she now looks older. It's pretty interesting how, even though this was written by a female author, the female characters in this book, especially Camilla, who is like a main character, she's still like so insignificant and a bystander to everything. There's probably some deeper meaning to her being written in this way, like how she doesn't have a personality and everything, but honestly, I cannot be bothered to analyze this book anymore. And Francis, he actually got outed, kind of. He was dating this lawyer guy, and then his grandfather, I think, found out about their relationship and about Francis being gay, obviously. And he was not very happy about that. And then Francis was going to have to marry a woman, like a very boring woman, it is described as. And because of this, and also among other things, like just going crazy from all the trauma that he has, Francis decided to kill himself, and he wrote the whole friend group letters like, guys, I'm about to see Henry again, fuck, bye. At this point, they hadn't had contact in 3 years. However, his suicide attempt is what brings them back together, which sounds very morbid and is very morbid. But yeah, his attempt at killing himself actually did not work out. He just had a little Hannah Baker moment, but his mate found him before he could see Henry again. Camilla and Richard, they hurry over to Francis to see how he's doing and visit him in hospital and all of that. Charles is still in Texas. I forgot why he didn't come, but it wasn't really significant. Charles is just like a very different person now, I guess. Anywho, even though they haven't seen each other in so long, and despite all of the trauma that they went through, Richard, Francis, and Camilla, they get familiar with each other quite soon again. There's not really an awkward silence. At least it wasn't described in the book, but who knows. Richard randomly proposes to Camilla. He's like, okay, Camilla, so like, when are we going to get married? Mind you, they haven't talked in 3 years. The fuck? I mean, they did always have a little chemistry going on between them, but both of them were too big of pussies to ever do something really. And also Camilla eventually started dating Henry, but Camilla declines Richard's proposal because she is in love with Henry. He's been dead for 3 years, but the dick must have been that good. Damn, imagine you love somebody as nasty and disgusting and apathetic as Henry. Girl, higher your standards. Honestly, everybody is pretty pathetic in this book, except for Julie Boovy. She's just doing her Pilates, having a fun time, being famous. Good for her. She's the real main character of this book, honestly. The three friends also mention how they all feel like they have seen the ghost of Henry at some point. Richard said that while he was in the hospital for his abdomen gunshot wound, he had seen Henry in the room. Francis had apparently seen Henry while he was having his Hannah Baker moment. And Camilla, I mean, she's still in love with him, but like he's dead, so like, I don't know. The book ended with Richard talking to Henry again, but like Henry in ghost form. I believe Henry said something like, "Hi Richard, how is it going in Canada? Are you doing good?" Just small talk like that, I guess. It's so random. Imagine you're being haunted by your murderous friend and he just like small talk chats you up. And then the very final line of this book was from Henry's ghost being like, "Oh, okay, I have an appointment, gotta go." Like, bitch, you in heaven, actually hell probably, you do not have appointments. Shut the fuck up. Actually, you are not even real. You're just Richard's hallucination because everybody in this book is going crazy because they're all losers. Yeah, I'm fucking done, okay? This is everything that was on here. I hate this book. I mean, I don't hate it. It will get like a solid 2 stars, but only because there was a gay character in that. That was the only thing that saved this book from me. If there hadn't been a gay character or so much like gay stuff in there, I would have thrown that book away into the trash. Oh my god, I just realized I don't need to talk about this book anymore. Wait, that's so great. I do not need to spend another second looking at a single line in this book. You know what I'm gonna read next? A Colleen Hoover book! I need something really stupid right now, because this wasn't smart, okay? This was just boring. So I need something stupid and goofy to lift me up again and rekindle my motivation to read and my love and passion for literature. This book drained me, okay? Like I said, this book felt like a very, very, very slow lobotomy. And now I am fully lobotomized and I'm ready to get back out there. I feel very happy now. Guys, I'm so sweaty, okay? It's like so hot right now. I will never talk about this book again. Also, like the pig, what did the